while everybody's getting seated and all, I am just going to tell you who I am. I used to not do that when I would come up, and people would say, you know, there's a lot of folks that have never met you. And I said, you're right. So I always try to introduce myself. My name is Stan Pickett. I am the mayor here in Mesquite, and we're excited to be here tonight. We've got several council members here. There may be some others that come as well, but mainly it's just great to see all of you folks here tonight. You know, we've started. This is one of the examples. We've started trying to go out to our community on these type of projects. This project, and you'll hear a lot about it tonight from Mr. James, has not yet been approved, has not yet been voted on, has not yet been put together as anything that we've decided on. We have some ideas and some things we'd like to share with you tonight, but we're coming out to the community, we're coming out to you to show you some of the things that we've looked at and decided. And one of the comments that I always make when I'm in these things is we have to look at Mesquite, Texas as a whole. We have 145,000 residents, 145,000 residents. We have in the city over 1,100 employees. There are over 40,000 single-family households in Mesquite, Texas. We love the community. I've been here my whole life. It feels like a small town. Most of you in this room probably know each other, and that's great. But we have a system of roads and streets and neighborhoods that we have to meld together throughout our community so that that we can all be happy and proud that we have. So I just wanted to say that, again, thank you for being here tonight. I'm not going to talk much. I would like to introduce some of your council members that are here. I believe that the council members district we're in is Councilman Bill Porter. Mr. Porter. We just came in and had a seat. We have Councilman Greg Noche. I get to keep saying our newest council member, but Dan Alleman, who's here tonight. And others may be joining us as the night goes on. We also have our city manager, Cliff Cahealy, here this evening. So we're excited. We'll have an opportunity for you to talk. It's more of a sharing information. We'll have question and answer, and some other times a little bit later. But at this time, I'd like to turn this over to our Director of Public Works, Mr. Tim James.
Thank you. And to reiterate what the mayor said, thank you very much for taking time out of your day to come join us and to get a little more information about the Gus Thomasson Road project. My name's Tim James. I'm the Director of Public Works, and this is preliminary concepts on what we have for improvements to Gus Thomasson Road. And just to highlight, make sure everybody understands which section of the road we're talking about, since Gus Thomasson runs quite a way through town. The section that we're presenting to you tonight is the section from Highway 80 up to Town East Boulevard on the north. So this is the section of road that we have some preliminary information for you tonight. The current items that we are looking at to address for this roadway is obviously the pavement condition. You've been down this road, you know the condition it's in. So that's the purpose of this project, is to address the aging on this section of road. This section of road is also included in our Town Center Tax Increment Financing District. That's the TIF. And what that means is the funding for this project will come from that particular set of dollars, tax dollars, that's been set aside for this project over the years. So that's important on the funding side. And where we are tonight is we are working on our preliminary design. So we do not have construction drawings. We do not have imminent construction on this roadway. We have done some work to identify what needs to be done and some items for your consideration that we'll talk to you a little bit later on. With the preliminary design, what we have looked at in depth are the existing conditions out there. What is the traffic? What are the different things that affect this roadway and the businesses and residents that are in the area? We've done a specific traffic study. We've got more detail for you in just a moment. That we've looked at what happens within this corridor both now and in the future. We've looked at the intersection operations. We've looked at the access points along this corridor, because I know that's very important to a lot of the residents in the room. We've also looked at the number of lanes that's necessary to carry the traffic. It's one of the things that we always look at to make sure that the number of lanes will adequately carry the traffic both now and in the future. We've looked at safety concerns through this corridor, specifically speeding. We've had a lot of input through time on safety concerns. And we've also looked at the historical input from the residents and businesses in the area, such as noise or speeding. And this is our last step in that preliminary design, is to get public input. We have some ideas. We're presenting them to you tonight to get some more input, and then we'll take those to council later on to get the concept as we move forward into the final design. So that's the preliminary design. That's where we are at this point right now. It's very important as we looked at this corridor to look at the existing conditions out there and specific to traffic. And we noted several very important features. On the south side of this corridor from Highway 80 through Motley, there are only 2 lanes that come across the bridge and go north through Motley. Coming from the north going south, you have 2 through lanes, once again, that go across the bridge, and there's a 3rd lane that travels down and drops off as you access the Highway 80 frontage roads. Those 2 lanes going north, they widen out at this highlighted section here. So this is where it goes from 2 lanes out to 3 lanes. On the north end of the project, once again, we have only 2 lanes that come all the way through the Town East intersection and enter this corridor. All the other lanes coming north to south either turn left onto Town East Boulevard or right onto Town East Boulevard. So as we look at holistically at this corridor, on both ends of the project, you only have 2 lanes that enter and travel this corridor. But through the middle is where we have 3 lanes on each side. And this is very important as we look at traffic and what's needed to handle in the future through this corridor. The traffic study that we performed, the first thing that we did is we looked at those historical conditions. We've taken traffic counts and studied this area for a long time. So we looked back and looked at the patterns through time. How has traffic changed through this corridor over time? We also looked at what are the conditions right now. We took recent traffic counts to look at what are we seeing now compared to the historical conditions. And then we even took that information and we made projections. And we looked at, if everything out there is fully developed, what are the highest uses we think that that could develop into, and then what would be the traffic? What would be the effect on this corridor? So we want to make sure that whatever we build is going to handle the traffic not only now, but out 20 years. They may be flying cars by then, but we're projecting they're still driving. We also looked at all the intersection operations. And everybody who lives out there knows you have the peak times, morning, afternoon, and they're heavier traffics during those times. So we want to make sure that we looked at those, and we look at all the turning movements to see if there's any ways that we can improve those intersections. So with our traffic study, these are the things that we looked at in depth to come up with ideas on how we can improve this area. As we looked at the traffic through this corridor, there were 4 different sections that we noted and traffic counts. On the south end, from Motley down to Highway 80, this is future projected traffic. We project fully developed conditions is 28,000 vehicles per day. From Motley up to Town Center, we're projecting 23,000 vehicles a day. So you can see a decrease from Motley up to Town Center. Through the middle of the corridor, we're only projecting the 15,000 vehicles per day. And that's, once again, if everything's developed there on the east side. And then on the north end, we're projecting the 21,000 vehicles per day. Now, this is important as we look at the number of lanes. When we design roadways, we design for 6,000 vehicles a day per lane. So with the 6 lanes that are out there now through the middle, that would carry the 36,000 vehicles. So our worst case condition 20 years from now, we're projecting traffic to only be half of what the current capacity is. With our preliminary design, we were wanting to accomplish several things. And the four major things that we were really wanting to accomplish was to accommodate both our existing traffic and our future traffic. We want to improve the intersections if there's any way possible. We want to increase the safety through the corridor. And the last thing is we really want to make this beneficial to the residents. There's a lot of residential homes already out there on the east side of this roadway, and we want to make this project where it's beneficial to you. Not just building it again, but see if there's any way that we can improve the quality of life for those residents. Our proposal through the preliminary alignment were two different sections. On the south section, from Highway 80 up to Motley, we're proposing the same configuration as you see today. It handles the traffic well. The future traffic is not going to change that much to that section, so we're proposing to keep that section exactly as it is today. The north section, from Motley all the way up to Town East, we're proposing to construct a 4-lane roadway. We're also proposing to construct a 12-foot trail on the west side of the roadway. We also want to increase, if we do a 4-lane, we can increase that buffer between the existing homes and the edge of curb. This is where we were really looking at how can we benefit the residents through this corridor. And so by going with the 4-lane section, we can increase that buffer width between the edge of traffic and those homes. And we're also proposing to make some intersection improvements for this northern section. Graphically, just to highlight, on the south section, from Motley down to Highway 80, this section will remain the same. Where on the north section, through the majority of the corridors, where we propose to build the 4-lane roadway with the trail and the increased buffer between the residents. So the considerations that we are really coming to you tonight to get your input, we have two different areas. The first area is the access points. Everybody knows along this section of roadway, there are a lot of streets that are closed and currently do not access Gus Thomasson Road. We can use those current access points. That's what we have in our preliminary alignments, as you see. However, if there's an overwhelming desire from the residents to open those, that is an option. We could open those and make those accessible. Once again, what we propose is the way they are now, and so we're wanting feedback whether that's something that the residents would like to change. The second area we would really like input on is the options in that residential buffer. There are several things that we could do. One of the first options is we could construct a screening wall along the full length of the residential properties. So there would provide some screening between the homes and the roadway. Now, a lot of times walls can get built for sound purposes. However, there are a number of openings through all the alleys and even the closed streets that would still have openings, so it really is not going to be for sound purposes. Sound's still going to be able to get through. There's enough openings that it's really not going to be for sound, but there could be an aesthetic wall placed on the residential property lines. We could also construct a wrought iron fence along there and provide enhanced landscaping in that buffer, in that increased buffer area. And so those are two of the options that we have in that buffer zone. Another thing that we wanted to input on is some neighborhood identification features that are available. At the end of those closed streets, and I have graphics for all this, at the end of those closed streets, excuse me, got me talking too much. At the end of the streets that are currently closed, we could provide some enhanced features that provide the neighborhood some additional identification. So as we talk about those access points, just to make sure everybody understands, in the proposed alignment, the streets are currently closed. The trail would go across as the sidewalk does currently through those areas, and there would not be vehicular access. So these are the points along the corridor that we're discussing that currently are proposed to remain closed but could be opened if the residents desire. For the screening wall, what we're talking about is constructing a screening wall in these locations that would be the full length of the resident's property. So from the front property line to the rear property line. And there would still be openings for the closed streets and alleyways and everything along this corridor. This is a cross-section, so you're looking sideways at it, of what we're discussing. And the highlighted area shows you where we're talking about. So the screening wall would be on the property line, adjacent to the residential homes, and then it would be the trail and then the road. It's important to note, as this line shows here, this is the existing location of the curb and the roadway as it relates to the homes. With the proposal for the 4-lane, that curb line would move out away from the residential properties, and that's a distance of about 14 feet to that corridor. That's the additional amount of buffer that could be constructed under this proposal. This is the picture that shows the type of screening wall that could be built. This is a recent one that was constructed here in Mesquite. That just shows you the way it could look if this is an option that the residents would like to see along this corridor. Under the landscaping and enhanced fencing options, this is once again looking down and showing you where these are the areas where we could construct a wrought iron fence with additional landscaping. Once again, the fence would be along the property lines with landscaping right outside the fence. And this would be along the residential pieces through this corridor. If we're looking at sideways at the cross section again, the highlighted area is showing you where the landscaping and the wrought iron fence could be built. And once again, highlighting the distance that curb could be moved away from the houses. This option is the same as 14 feet. We could provide this under either option. Either one of these we could construct easily. It's just one of those we want input on, which is the preference of the residents in the corridor. And this is a picture just denoting, so you kind of see what we're talking about, of what a wrought iron fence could be with stone columns through it. This would be if you were looking from the resident side, looking through, the landscaping would be on the outside between the fence and the roadway and the trail. So this just kind of give you a visual of what could be built. As we talk about the neighborhood identity features, at the end of the streets, if they remain closed, we could construct some bollards and then also some stone monuments at the end of those that provide some additional identification for the neighborhood. The consultant had a great idea as we were going through this, and as we look at what those stone monuments could be, and it's just an option. Since the streets are named after astronauts, we could put a monument out there that has specific and detailed information about each of the astronauts for which the street is named. So it's just an idea of how we could provide some more identification and make the whole neighborhoods really connect with how they were named in the first place. So once again, to highlight the considerations that we're really wanting your input, the access options of leaving the streets closed, or if there's a desire to open those streets. It can be designed either way. And in the buffer, we could construct a screening wall, or we could construct some enhanced landscaping with a wrought iron fence. And then also, if the streets remain closed, we could add some additional neighborhood identification. So these are the pieces where we were wanting some feedback on which of these options that are really the most interesting to you. Where we would go from here is we've sent out surveys to all the residents in the area. And so once we get that information back on what is the most preferable from all the residents, we'll take that information to the council and we'll get direction from them on what we need to include in this project to move forward to final design if that's what they desire. If we move forward if they give us direction to move forward with the design, we could start that in this fall, the fall of 2016. It's going to take us about a year to design the project, which would mean we could start construction next fall, about fall of 2017. So this is just kind of where we would go if direction is given by the council. Now with that, we'll answer questions. You have on your table question cards. So if you have questions, if you would, we're going to take a few minutes for you to fill those out. Staff will come around and collect those, and then we would like for you to come up and speak up here if you want to, so everybody else can hear, because there's a lot of people who may have the same question. So if you have a question, if you'll fill those out, and then staff will collect them, and then we'll try to answer the questions, and hopefully we can get everybody's questions answered. After we get through with the question period, we do have exhibits on both sides of the room that show a little bit more detail on what we're discussing, as well as their staff on both sides that can answer any specific questions that you have. So if we just take a minute, you'd fill out those question cards. If you don't want to come up and speak, but would still like to fill one out, you can fill those out and give them to any of the staff members when we're done. What we'll do, we have the comment cards, and I will call the first couple of names, and if you could come up to the podium. Just as a reminder, this has been noticed as a public meeting, so under the Open Meetings Act, we have council members here, so we post it that way so the council members can be here and be present to listen, but that also means we need to restrict comments to the topic at hand. So certain things that are outside of this scope and this project, we're not going to be able to discuss. So if the questions pertain to this project, we certainly can. And I'll ask the members of the audience if you'll come up to the microphone, one, so everybody else can hear your comments. And we are recording the meeting, so in the future we know what questions were asked, and so we have a record of the meeting. I have a couple cards from Gwen Burkett.
Yes, okay.
Burkett. Try it.
All right, can you hear me now? All right, good. That's the first time I've been told somebody can't hear my mouth. I have lived in Mesquite since Memorial Day of 1971. I came to Mesquite because it had the reputation for next to Richardson being the best school district in the area. I have remained here in my little starter home since that time, raised children here. I have some concerns, and it's because I went to the internet and I read everything I could find. And I'm very concerned. Number one, the scope is so small. I personally went down and inspected the area that is involved, from Carla to Moon, to see what was there and what wasn't. There are not that many empty buildings there. It makes it look like it because the old Minyards is there, and that was a great loss to the area.
Miss Burkett, this section of Gus Thomasson is the one from Town East to 80. That's a different project, different section.
Okay. I'm talking about the Gus Thomasson project that I read about online during the city.
That's a different project than one we're speaking about tonight.
Okay, but what I'm saying is we seem to be concentrating on a very small area around the Villa's apartment. What I don't understand is the total cost of this project. I've read all these things that the city put out, and at one point they told us that it was less than $1 million for the city's part, and that NTCOG or whatever it was going to pay the rest of it.
Ms. Burkett, I don't want to, that's a different project than this one. But the one we're talking about tonight is from Town East to Highway 80. Both of them are on Gus Thomasson Road. Yes, ma'am.
Is that not it? Is that not what we're talking about?
Yeah, from Highway 80 to Town East.
Okay.
The section that you're talking about is north of 30 from Carla to Moon.
Okay.
So it's a different project.
And my real concern, I suppose, is that it says in here that there has to be upgrades to the sewer, water, and drainage. And the cost for that was $3.2 million. The first I read, it was going to be like under $1 million for this project for the city. And then, I'm not sure what properties are to be condemned or which properties are vacant in that area. And I'm not familiar with TIF. How much do we now have in TIF to cover this project? The other thing I have is why, and maybe I'm reading something wrong, but from what I read here, I'm really concerned about, it said that one of the articles that I have here said that they had to, Encore had to move power lines and perhaps even put some underground.
Ms. Marquette, once again, that's a different project. That's not this project.
You were not talking about from Moon to Carter.
No, ma'am. We're
Then I
talking,
am totally out of line. When I saw the deal, I went online and I read all this stuff and I'm thinking, wait a minute, what's wrong with this?
they're both on Gus Thomasson Road, just different parts of the road.
My real concern is, from what I read, about 80 Town East stands. And that is the cost, with all these upgrades that were in this same article I just showed
But
you.
those costs were for the different section of road.
Well, it's on the same thing, it's on the same article, so I'm confused, okay? But it seems to me that we started out with less than $1 million. And then, at some point, in all these papers, it's an $8 million project.
Yes, ma'am. I think Mr. Kahili, he can help you with some of your questions on that particular road project.
Maybe other people would like to hear it.
Well, it's, once again, that's a different project than what we're talking about tonight. Okay, is Ann Smith? Ms. Smith, do you need your card, or do you? Okay.
My name is Ann Smith. I live on Sherrah Way, one of the closed-in streets, and I have lived here since October of '71 in the same house. I don't think anything needs to be done except fix the streets. There was a little hitch on what you said. There's a little hitch on what you said about north of Town East being just 2-lane. Yeah, it is for just a little while, because from 30 to Town East, it's 3 and then 4-lane. 2 of those lanes, actually, 2 of those lanes are for the left turn lane. But people don't get out of that 3rd lane until that left turn lane comes about, and then they switch over. And so yes, there's 2 lanes there, and below Town East, there's that weird little island that it's 2 lanes for just a bit, but then it's 3 lanes all the way down. And on the other end of it, 3 lanes there at Motley, and people wait until the last minute to get over once that lane becomes that right turn lane to get on 80. So particularly in the mornings and the afternoons, I just feel there's too much traffic on that road to take it down 4 lanes. That's my big consideration. One other little thing in the drawing, and I don't know, it looked like you had 5 feet of grass or whatever from the proposed bike lane walkway to the new curb. How much is there now between the sidewalk and the curb? As it exists now, do you know?
Yeah.
Just
Between the sidewalk.
between the sidewalk.
In some locations, it's up next to the curb. It kind of varies through the corridor.
And the other question I had that was on there was, because that's my main corridor. From, I head out my alley, because my street's closed, and I would just as soon leave it closed, and I go north on Gus Thomasson to wherever I need to go there, or I go south to Gus Thomasson to my church and everything else down there. And so I'm familiar with that, and I know that it is highly trafficked. Again, the nursing home is built, you're gonna have 3 shifts of people coming in there 3 times a day, not as much in the overnight thing, but you are gonna have that increase. If that housing development goes in, you're gonna have 100 plus, almost 250 houses there, increased, 2.1 cars or whatever coming out of there. So I question the future study of the traffic. My other question on there was below 80, you know, it goes 2 lanes when you go over the bridge, and then we do have traffic coming in off at 80 to make that, but I just think that nothing needs to be done with the width of the roads, it just needs to be redone. I really don't see the need to take it down to 4 lanes. I didn't know that much about the project on the north side of 30. I think that's a mistake too, but I'm not getting into that. Anyway, that's fine. And what is the traffic flow on Gross Road? How does that compare below 80 to Gus Thomasson above 80?
But we have those numbers, but we don't have them here tonight because once again, it's different use and they drop off before they get up. Not all of them do, but some of them drop off before they get to this point.
I just know my friends and stuff that come in the mornings, there's backup at Town East, they get off at Gross Road at 6:35, and it's all the way up to Shiloh, Plano Road, whatever. So,
If there's an accident somewhere,
just morning traffic and evening traffic. Those 2 times a day, Gus Thomasson, from wherever people enter north, all the way down, across county, across 30, across Town East, across 80, all the way into Lower Mesquite. There's a lot of traffic, and I just don't think the projection is valid. And I think it needs to be left in 6 lanes and just fix it, that's all.
Helen Montoya.
I'm sure you're going to have Okay, I've lived in this area as well for 44 years. I appreciate the city of Mesquite improving infrastructure. However, my concern is not so much enhancing, widening, repairing Gus Thomasson as it is fixing the sidewalks in my neighborhood. My neighborhood sidewalks are so atrociously bad that I can't walk on them because I'm afraid I'm going to trip and break my bones. This is Manchester, Concord, Jamestown, Miller, Emerald, Berkshire, and Kensington. All of these sidewalks are horrible. Now, if money is being allocated for the repair of these sidewalks, fine. I'd like to know that, because if money is not allocated for that repair, why should we widen something that is not going to enhance our neighborhoods? And all I can see from this project right now is, number one, it sounds to me like it's a done deal. Someone has already said, okay, we're going to do this, and you people tell us what kind of fence you want as a buffer, what kind of wall you want as a buffer, and what streets you want us to open. I don't know that I have heard or I have read that this is or has been approved by the city people. So it just sounds to me like someone got somewhere and said, okay, this is what we're going to do with Gus Thomasson. Let's tell the folks this is what we're going to do, and let's have them tell us which 3 things they want us to work with. So am I wrong? Do we have money allocated for the repairs on these sidewalks? I can't walk across the street from Motley into the other street because Motley is a pretty busy street, so I stay within that area. And I'd like to know if there is money allocated for the repair of these sidewalks and how soon that's going to begin.
That's a great question. We get that a lot. And residential sidewalks in Mesquite are the responsibility of the homeowners. So we don't have a project to go in there and repair the sidewalks
But the
within the...
homeowners didn't do the damage.
Well,
The city needs to come in and look at it and say, okay, homeowners, if you want to have these repaired, or we can allocate some money towards that. Every time I go walking, and I walk every day, I have to stay on the street now because I can't do it on the sidewalks. And some of the streets are very narrow, with only 2-car lanes. So I have to constantly listen, watch out for cars coming. That's dangerous too.
And like I said, we get this question quite a bit, but on our sidewalks, especially in residential areas, they are the responsibility of the homeowner. We don't have a program to citywide go in and replace sidewalks. And we do have a program, it's called our 50-50 program, where we can participate in some of the repair costs with residents. And there's all kinds of information on our website regarding that. But we don't have, as part of this project, unless we reconstruct the residential road, the sidewalks are the responsibility of the homeowner.
So, okay, when was this project, Gus Thomasson, when was it approved by the people?
Okay, the project, the only thing that's been approved, council authorized us over a year ago to perform a preliminary design, which is a study. As you know, the roadway conditions out there, we need to do something with the road. And so they've authorized us to go and look at it, get cost estimates, what is it going to take to repair it, and then also, what are the options? And that's why we hire consultants to go in there and study it. We look at the traffic, we look at all those conditions, and to bring recommendations back to them. Part of that process is to get public input. So council hasn't authorized us to go forward with the design or even construction yet. So we're going through a process to look at what needs to be done, what could be done, get some public input, which is what we're doing tonight, and then we'll take this back to them, and they'll decide if we move forward or not. But it hasn't been authorized to go to construction yet, or even final design.
So, but are we going to be asked, cast a ballot to say yes, go with the approvals, or no, don't go with it, with the repairs or whatever, enhancements? Are we going to have a chance to say yes or no?
Once again, that would be, yes, that would, council, if they wanted to go that direction, they could, or they could authorize us to move forward, or they could tell us not to move forward at all. So that's part of the process, to get public input from the residents and see what the desire is, so they can have all the information and give us appropriate direction.
Okay, thank you.
Bill Tobins? Oh, Tobias. I don't have my glasses on, I'm sorry.
Hi, my name is Bill Tomasson. I live on Mission Way, north of Mesquite. I know this video is for the roads south of Gus Thomasson and Town East. But I got a question here. If the homeowners are responsible for the sidewalks, how come the city is going to put ramps in any intersection on all the streets around town?
If we have specific areas where we're doing work, and are you referring to the area back kind of west of Galloway?
It's going to be all over Mesquite, I understand. I got pictures over here. The project being done right now. And like I said on there, we were coming up with this idea on the design of this intersection sidewalk for ramps.
Where we're doing ramps in town, it's usually associated with the project. And when we do a reconstruction project in an area, whether it's residential or one of our major thoroughfares, we're required to bring those up to ADA standards, the ramps, and that's how come you see those are dictated to us by federal regulations on how they can be constructed for the ADA ramps.
Yeah, Garland, Mesquite, Dallas, those areas, Mesquite is the only one that looks like this. There's no downtown Dallas, nothing like this. I got pictures here. I can pass it around and ask these people which would they like to go on with their walkers or wheelchairs, even walk. There's tripping areas being built here. It's not right. It ain't go fairly designed to make it right for all the people in the neighborhood to go walking. And Mrs. Montoya goes to trip on hers, there's a trip on these too.
If you have any specific concerns, you can certainly give them to one of the staff members.
Okay.
But like I said, we even get them inspected. We have to have an outside party who's certified by the state come in, and anytime we construct a ramp, make sure it meets those ADA standards.
Might be their standard, but this is not, it doesn't look right, you know. It doesn't look right.
If you have specific locations, we'd be happy to take to look at. You can get one of the staff members. You can give it to Matt Holzapfel right there. Okay, several cards here that don't have names. Deidre Johnson. Miss Johnson? Oh, there she is.
My name's Deidre Johnson, and I live on Fulton Drive behind the Luby's Cafeteria. And I think the people that live on those astronaut streets should have to say whether those streets are opened or not. But my question is, why don't we, if you're going to build those walls or the fencing up, why not enclose the area where the street's already blocked off? Why leave that gap there? Why not just leave the alleyways open so that people can go in and out?
If you'll notice, some of that is emergency access.
But those roads are blocked off anyway.
They're blocked off, but in an emergency situation, the fire trucks could drive across that, the original pavement that was there. That's why, even in the proposal, we could have bollards that could be removed in case of emergency. If there's a solid wall, those streets are dead ends, and it makes it very difficult under emergency situations for our first responders to get in there. So
I can see that, but there are a lot of neighborhoods where there is limited access, and there are walls all the way around.
the ones that have walls, if you'll look, there's internal circulation. They're laid out so that the fire and police department have two ways in and out, always through there, and that's why that subdivision is very unique because it doesn't access Gus Thomasson, and there's not even a turnaround where a vehicle, especially a fire truck or something, could turn around at the end. And so that's why we were proposing to still leave those open. Elizabeth Cheney, I'm sorry. Miss Cheney. Going once. Marge Owen. Miss Owen. Oh, there's.
Okay, my question was, what about the property that is gonna be needed? Is there any extra property that's gonna be needed for the project on either side?
We haven't gone to final design yet. Under this particular concept that we're looking at, there'd be very little. The only place I think might be one of the intersections for a turn lane. But overall, we're not buying property through the corridor if we construct it.
So it looks like you won't have to.
Yes, ma'am.
do additional property. The other question that I have, and it's because I've seen so many accidents over the years at Town East Boulevard and Gus Thomasson. It's because of that, there's kind of a turn, and a turn this way, and if you're making that left-hand turn to go back toward Motley, not toward Motley, but back toward Highway 80. It's a really dangerous corner. And since I've lived in Mesquite about 35 years, I've seen at least 4 or 5 accidents. And I'm sure while I'm not around, there's accidents too. And I almost had one myself one time. And it's because people come around that corner pretty quickly. And when you're at that light, you've got the green light to go, and it changes, and that person will come across. And I've seen it happen so many times. So I thought, this would be a chance where maybe that could get straightened up just a little bit, or?
We can certainly look at that. That's one of the reasons we were wanting public input is for those safety concerns in those areas. So we can
Probably
certainly.
would be hard to do, but sometimes they can finagle things a little bit.
Yeah, that's what we can certainly take a look at it. So we can.
Oh, the maintenance of the wall, who's responsible for that?
That would be the
Is that
city. Yes.
Okay,
Any-
so you would take care of any of the wall itself? when it
Yes.
starts cracking up because of arterial?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
The wall and the landscaping. So any of the improvements in that buffer or that right of way would be the city's responsibility.
Okay. Thank you.
Betty Keyhart. There. Did I say that right, or?
For years, I lived on Jamaica, which is over in the North Gus Thomasson area. And I'm glad you're fixing that up. It needed it. That's why I moved. But now I live on Green Hill, one street over from Tosh Elementary. And different things keep happening in our city. Like several years ago, we were elected one of the most beautiful cities in the state or in the nation because of our tree grower. Now, are you talking about taking all those trees up in the middle of Gus Thomasson? And what are you going to do with them?
That, if we move forward with final design, that's something that we always look at. We have an arborist on staff, and we would have them look at it and see the health of those trees, what can be done with them, and then we make that decision from that point. We haven't studied the health of them or how they would be impacted at this time. That's more of a final design concept that we go through.
Then if you put the fence up along those houses there, who's going to take care of the landscaping you put up for that fence? Is that going to be the homeowners or the cities?
That would be the cities. Yes, we would maintain that.
And I worked for Mesquite ISD for a long time, and I know Mesquite ISD and the city of Mesquite have a good relationship. But I do have a couple of concerns. You're talking about putting more traffic at Motley and Gus Thomasson. Have you considered how much traffic's already been ordered and added to that intersection from that apartment complex? Now, these people, they do not follow the traffic rules. If you are sitting there and the light turns and they've been sitting a while, they're going to just jump right out in front of you. So suddenly you're in the wrong lane and somebody's right there at your window that you didn't want there. And if apartment buildings keep going up on the east side of Gus Thomasson, it's not going to be effective with the traffic flow you have designed now. Did you take into consideration that retirement village or whatever is going up there?
Yes, ma'am.
You did?
Yes, the retirement, the apartments that are there now, as well as what used to be the golf course, if it was developed into single-family homes, those are all the assumptions we made, plus an increase in traffic just from outside the area that could be traveling those quarters. I mean, we try to take a worst-case look of what it's going to be in 20 years.
Okay, now we're down to 2 lanes at Motley and Gus Thomasson. The 3rd lane switches over to the service road.
Yes, ma'am.
So you have 2 lanes going up and down that old bridge. Is the Department of Public Safety going to replace that bridge?
They don't have any immediate plans right now for it, and that's TxDOT's roadway, but we're not aware of any plans of replacing that bridge at this time.
So we're still going to crowd into 2 lanes until we drop down on Gus Thomas, on Gross and go 3.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Carl Jones.
Hello, I'm Carl Jones. We've lived I've lived in Mesquite for 32 years. My wife's been here all her life. But my concern is similar to some of the other people that we've heard, that you're starting with a road that has 6 lanes and is sometimes crowded as it is, and you're going to constrict that to 4. And it seems like that's reverse thinking in today's world, to go from a wider road to a more narrow road. The ideas of enhancing the visual aspects are good, but I think the cost of narrowing the road and causing the traffic problems is not a great idea. Additionally, I've heard the comments about sidewalks, and I know that's not currently the method the city works with, but maybe that's something the city should consider, is putting together a program for that as well. I know that's not what you do now. I heard that, but maybe that's something we really need to consider changing. And for the MISD side of it, I really think they should find a way to fix these squeaky seats in the school.
Ernest Wilbanks.
My name is Ernest Wilbanks, and I came to Mesquite in 1956. I seen it grow from 30,000 up to our present rate now. But unlike it last year, one takes 6 lanes, squeeze it down to 4, when the 6 lanes can't handle the traffic we got now. When you have to wait in an alley 10 minutes to make a right-hand turn out onto Gus Thomasson, there's something wrong. There's too much traffic. There's not enough roadway there to take care of the cars that's there now, let alone squeeze it down 2 lanes. And I'd like to make an appointment with somebody to see the traffic survey.
Okay. Yeah, and you can come up there. We've got certainly copies.
I live on Straw Way, and I go up and down Gus Thomasson every day, makes twice. I've seen them over there, strips out there, counting traffic. They might have had somebody sitting there with a clicker trying to turn off the car. But I haven't seen that last year. So when they get the survey.
We'd have to look. It's been.
I'd like to make an appointment.
Sure.
Look at the traffic survey that you got on Gus Thomasson right there in that area.
Okay, we can certainly do that. If I can get with you after the meeting, we'll get that.
Somebody made a remark earlier that they got an estimate went over to repair it. They said it was too much to repair it. How could it be more to repair a street than just to completely tear it up and redo it?
I'm not sure what you're on the repair side.
Somebody mentioned, well, that's wrong, we repaired it. Oh, we got an estimate, was astronomical. It couldn't be any more to repair it than it is. It couldn't be more to repair it than it is to replace it. When you go to replace it concrete, we're spending $120, $130 a square yard. You're turning a lot of money on the whole street. That's what, 2 miles in there we're talking about.
And it would depend. I'd have to see what the
That's
item you're talking
something we need to
about.
look at before it's opening the streets, we got enough traffic up down our alleys right now, we don't need more in front of the house. That's I'm sold on that. People don't like it because the streets are closed off, but it's a good idea, we don't get as much traffic. Thank you.
Harold Burns. No? Okay. Doug Lentz.
Good afternoon, my name is Doug Lentz, and the lady who asked 5 or 6 questions stole my questions, so I'll just add a little to it, I'll be real short. But I do want to thank the mayor, the city council, all of you for being here, allowing us this opportunity, and I do pray for you. God bless you. No, I'm serious about that, I pray for you, I do. But anyway, my question is we live at Motley, Gus Thomasson also. My concern is the kids at the apartments. I don't live in those apartments, but when I go to work every morning, I see the crossing guard, and I see the amount of traffic that goes in and out. Coming over 80 from, like you're leaving the animal shelter, come down Gross, come over 80. That's a big hill to narrow down for kids crossing that street. My son went to Tosh, and they have increased enrollment because of the kids in the apartments. So that's my only concern is, please take that into consideration when you do your work. Thank you.
Will, thank you. David Cheney. Mr. Cheney? Pat Siblick.
Hi, my name is Pat Siblick, and I've been here since 1970. We live on East Ridge, which is the flyover. We walk here. I'm concerned about narrowing the traffic on Gus Thomasson. Right now, it's hard to get across. And you're not going to tell me that they're not going to try to narrow the stuff on the other side, where it's impossible to get out of. You have to go to the light to get out of Kroger or Aldi. On Saturdays, on Friday afternoons, any afternoon, you can't get out of Kroger. You have to go to the light and stand in line to go through the light to get through, and the traffic is just awful. And the other thing, how long is this bike trail?
The trail, and it's a multi-purpose trail going through this. This will go along the west side of Gus Thomasson, and ultimately it's going to connect to all of our trail systems through town, and the new one that's already on the north side of
How are
town.
they gonna get up over the bridge,
Which bridge?
the 80 bridge?
The 80 bridge. Well, it goes actually under the 80 bridge, back toward the creek is where that section will go. That is already under design, and it will go under 80 at where the drainage goes underneath the 80 back toward 635. That's where it crosses 80 down that way.
Well,
That floods.
yeah, well,
That floods.
Yes.
Why would you do that if it floods
If-
there already?
That's a separate project. We can certainly talk with you about that one. So
we have a really neat trail that runs 1.5 miles around Town East Boulevard. And, I just don't understand the need to take away 2 lanes of traffic for a bike trail. Doesn't make sense. They tried to do that down Motley, and the people in Motley, they tried to make Motley 2 lanes. And there's no way they can make Motley 2 lanes because the traffic to the school takes up 2 lanes when school lets out. So, what's going on in the city that they want to make all our streets in this area smaller?
well, actually, what we look at is, and really we're trying to use your tax dollars as wisely as we can, because we look at the traffic and what's needed to carry it. As you know, all over town, our streets are aging quickly, and we only have X amount of dollars to work with. So anytime we do these projects, we really try to pay very close attention on what's the best use of your dollar to make sure we build just enough. For instance, on this particular project, the cost difference between the 4 and 6 lane is $1.5 million, which is a lot of money. And so that's how come that we're looking at really what do we need to build to carry the traffic that's going to be out there. So that's how come we look at those and all
What
those.
about the traffic that's there now? And when do you do these? Do you do them only at night?
No,
No days, or,
That's a very good question. A lot of people don't know. A lot of the counters that we put down, they're not all the tube counters. Some of them are actually on the pavement where you don't even hardly notice them when they're there. And like I say, this one we're lucky. We have not only, when I say current, within the last probably year and a half. I don't know the exact date that we took them last because we've been working on this obviously for a while. But historical through this corridor, we've watched how they've changed over the last 10 years on what the traffic patterns have changed through time on this corridor to give us an idea of what the growth is going to be. And then also looking at projections, we know typically single-family residents, the way they're located, put out this much traffic because we can look at the ones that are already in town and study them, and commercial. And so we make projections, and we even try to be conservative on that. Worst case, what's going to be on this roadway. And one thing to remember with roads, a lot of times when we look at designs, one of our biggest concerns is everybody speeds through here. Well, you're drivers. If you make it flatter and more open, you drive faster. So if you want slower traffic, we don't need to make it wider and flatter. That's when the narrowing of the lanes actually is one of the benefits to slow it down. So,
Let it slow down, just get through the traffic.
well, I'm just saying that's one of the things that we get. So we try to look at all those features when we design them and make the best use of your tax dollars. So that's why we look at them.
So people are gonna have to find other ways, they're just not gonna come that way. What good is that for our business?
Paula Henry.
Hi, I live in the section between Town East and Motley. And so my question was, and I think you've addressed it a little bit, was the difference between just redoing and keeping the 3 lanes in each direction as opposed to this large project with more decorative features. And you said something about $1.5 million difference?
Yes, ma'am.
And the 1.5 million would have been weighted on the maintenance part?
No, ma'am, that's just construction costs.
That's just construction costs. I guess I'm kind of like the gentleman who spoke earlier and don't understand why rebuilding it completely would be so much less than just redoing what we currently have. My concerns as a homeowner are that I will only have one way out of my residential section. That's to go out onto Town East Boulevard between Gus Thomasson and Motley. And then I do a lot of traveling to this section that's over at Galloway and Gross Road around in that area. So trying to just mentally mapping ways to get around the city if the Town East Boulevard is, torn up at that intersection, if Gus Thomasson is not travelable for a year or however long it may be. So those are some of the current concerns I have. And I am trying to balance them against the aesthetic differences that we would have. But like others, I have concerns about trying to get out onto, make those turns out onto Gus Thomasson when you have what are now 3 lanes of people coming each way compacted down to 2, plus the additional business and apartments and houses that are supposed to be along in there. And I must say I really enjoyed having the abandoned golf course along in there. It was so much more scenic. When you do a projection, if you can answer this question, when you do a projection, how many cars do you project as being at each residential area or for each apartment in an apartment complex?
I'd have to get you that. I don't have that off the top of my head because it kind of varies based on housing size, density, how many houses are in an area. And so it's kind of a range that we look at, but we can certainly, show you what we typically do for those and then what's been included in the study, certainly.
Yeah, because I have to say, just on my street and down the alley that's across from me, when I first moved in, I would say that most of the houses have maybe, 1 or 2 cars at them. But now that they have 1 to 2, maybe even, 3 teenagers coming in and out of the house, most of the cars have at least maybe 3 cars parked in the driveway and have expanded driveways and things like that. So I guess that was one of the questions, one of the answers that I was looking for was whether or not you took that kind of growth into account when you were counting the cars.
Yes, we are trying to project what we think would ultimately be there under those conditions.
Okay, I think I've addressed my concerns. I think that just as someone who's lived in Mesquite now for 12 years, that I've had concerns about what seems like a degradation. That it seems like all of that area becoming gradually less aesthetically pleasing. And so that's one of the reasons why I'm a little bit open to a plan that would make it a little bit more aesthetically pleasing. But I have all of those other concerns as well about traffic. Oh, and one thing completely off topic, but since this is transportation, I hate the blinking yellow lights that y'all have put on the turn signals now. I love that. It's like green means go. Blinking yellow means I don't have a clue. Thank you.
Carol Coyle. We'll keep the light thoroughfare open. Oh, yeah. Let's go up.
Yes, Carol Coyle, 2216 John Glenn Parkway. I have a couple of questions. One was, how can you say there's going to be less traffic on Gus Thomasson in 20 years when it seems like it increases every week with the apartments, et cetera, et cetera? Is that true or not?
Well, we're projecting more traffic in the future.
And you're going to put them on 4 lanes?
Yes, ma'am.
And let me ask you this. Is there a lot of, push this all the way to the front. Is there a lot of bicycle riders? Because I'll tell you what, I've lived in Mesquite since April of 1971 in that same house. And I don't see, and I go all over Mesquite, I see very few. And like that new heritage trail they have, I have yet to see one person when I go down to Town East. I love I'm going to tell you right now, if we even have a hiking bikes or whatever it is going down Gus Thomasson, there's not any way I would get on a bicycle with a line there with that traffic, even if it's 4 lanes.
Yeah, yes, ma'am.
Because they're going to go zippity-doo-dah, you know, real fast. And then, like they said too, in the morning and at night, the traffic is going to be terrific. It's not that it's going to slow it down. It will be backed up to 80 in Town East because they can't get through. Do you understand? Do
Yes.
you ride a bicycle?
I do, but this particular project, we don't have bike lanes like.
Oh, you don't have bike lanes, but there'd be a line. Now, there's no way I'm taking my life in my hands with one little lane and driving, because there's people killed over there at White Rock Lake. You know what I mean? With that little line and the way they come down, and even with the 4 lanes, I just don't believe that anybody is going to slow down. Now, I can't get out my alley, and those people who come down John Glenn are coming like you've never seen traffic before. I just wish somebody, and I appreciate the mayor and everybody coming out today. And I think, I don't know whether Greg's still here, he's my guy in this area. But it's really good to see that you are taking an interest, and I do hope that everything is inputted. And will we be notified when this comes like for a vote at the city council or what have you?
We publicize every meeting.
You publicize every meeting for the city council?
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
And so this, by the time we get the information, it should be sometime in August when we have all this put together to present the public feedback to the council. So
Okay.
I don't have the exact date because we still have to compile it, but that's when we're anticipating.
Okay. I'm for 4 lanes only.
6 lanes. 6 lanes. Not 4 lanes.
C. Hindler. Hindler? C. Hindler? Yeah, I think she indicated keeping it 6 lanes. Deborah Ray. Ms. Ray.
My question is purely a
which one. I live on 2221 John Glenn, so I'm on the only street that cuts through from the park to Gus Thomasson. Actually, I'm pleased with what I've seen from what you have to offer. But my question is, and it makes me answer one of those questions differently, and I put all this in writing, but is there or can there be some consideration given if the other astronaut streets aren't opened up? I would ask that you consider doing something on John Glenn to slow traffic, maybe discourage the cut-through traffic. I know we've had other meetings with other projects, and this has come up. People seem to have trouble believing that anyone would cut through that neighborhood to avoid the traffic light at Town East and Gus Thomasson that they do. So there's a lot of cut-through traffic on our residential street where we have houses where we live, and it's the only street that goes through to go to the park and to the pool and on out to Town East Boulevard. So really that was my comment question.
Okay. And thank you. That's certain information we'd like to know.
Speak up, might be helpful.
John, I just have a first name, John on Apollo Way. John on Apollo Way. Should have had door prizes. Nope. Had several from John on Apollo Way. Makins, Maxons, Cumberland Drive. Makins, Maxon on Cumberland Drive. Darlene McCurry. Darlene McCurry. Oh.
We just want on streets left closed. I'd like to have 6 lanes.
Could you come up so we can have it on record?
Come on, darling.
Darlene McCurry, 212 Foreman. My questions, I guess, have been answered. Mine is mainly a comment, just to say we want, I want our streets closed, left closed, and also have 6 lanes.
Thank you. Celeste Bennett.
Good evening. I'm Celeste Barnett, and I live on Sherwood Way. I have a couple concerns. First of all, I would love to keep Sherwood Way closed off. If it could be done nicely, with, like you say, for safety reasons, to have removable posts similar to what we have, maybe beautified a little bit more. My other concern about that too is just like the lady just said about John Glenn being a fruit fair. My fear is that if you should open up Sherwood Way and those other streets, they'll become more of a fruit fair. We have the park there, we have the pool there, and it's numerous occasions that I have a problem even getting to my home when there are different things going on at the park. And it's not necessarily events that the city, it's different people coming from outside of Mesquite having functions in the park, and they're parking, and I live midway Sherwood Way. They have cars parked almost a car from my home, so that I have to go down the alley and park in my driveway. Another concern of mine, and I'm gonna make a lot of people already addressed the same issues that I have, but I am concerned too about we want progress, it's good, but I don't want it to invade on our privacy or our safety. I know they have these different large apartment complexes, and before having that, we had a lot of different little business miniature malls opening up we need the money, it's all good. But then you may have a possibility of drawing some of the not so likable. With mass numbers, you always get some undesirables within there. Right now, I've been on Shearway a little over 20 years, not as long as some. But I have had grandchildren that have went to North Mesquite, and they have walked to my home. But not only that, other children already walk from North Mesquite and use the Shearway as a walkway. And my fear is to not just having walking traffic, to have driving traffic down Shearway. I think that's about it. But I was, another thing, so who takes care of the alley?
The city does.
Okay, you need a little attention.
Any like maintenance needs you like that, you can certainly go online and report those online because we would love to know. Thank you. Tammy Lentz.
My question concerns when the construction does start, should the council decide to go ahead and go forward with this, how is it going to be done? Are you going to take one side of Gus Thomasson, whether you do it the two lanes each way or the 3 lanes each way? Are you going to close off one side, get it done, and then move to the other side and close it off?
That would, what we would look at in the final design part. We are directed to move forward. That's one of the big considerations we always look at. How do we maintain traffic through construction? We don't know that at this point because we haven't gone to design.
Over a year ago, we met and discussed repairing or doing something for Motley. Now, okay, I'm going to admit it. I cut through Russtown and Town Center to avoid Motley. Nothing has been done on Motley. I understand that's not a project, but Motley is pretty much less than desirable. And if you start working on Gus Thomasson, and it's not going to be travelable, where are we going to drive?
That's a very good point. Where we are with Motley, to kind of segue into this, Motley's, the design is complete. We plan on advertising it for bid in about July, so it should be this fall when that starts construction. So that project, if council gives us direction to move forward on this one, that project will be completed prior to this one. So they wouldn't be going on at the same time.
Okay, so council says, okay, we're going to do that, and they get started by August, and it's going to be completely finished on Motley before y'all start doing whatever it is y'all decide to do to Gus Thomasson?
Yes, ma'am. It's going to take us about a year to design this one before we'd even start construction.
Are you praying for no rain?
No, I try not to after that last drought we had. So we build those in. We do look at all those, and we would also have the ability to, if Motley wasn't finished, we wouldn't have to start this one, knowing that, I mean, we don't want to cause a traffic issue like that. So we wouldn't start this one unless Motley was complete. We would know that ahead of time before we even bid this project.
Okay, so Motley should be started by August 2016.
No, not August, in the fall. If we start advertising for bids, we get bids, we have to evaluate them. By the time the contractor actually moves in, it'll be the fall before.
Fall of 2016.
2016, this fall. So more of the probably October, November timeframe is when construction would actually begin. Maretta, I'm sorry.
It's Marita Gowan.
Marita Gowan, I'm sorry.
Nobody gets it right. Anyway, I lived in Mesquite since 1957. I was 10 when my family moved over on San Marcos. But my home is on Eagle Pass. And I called about the speed bump because when you off of Americana, Eagle Pass makes a 90-degree turn and cars come whizzing around that corner. And you know, someday somebody's going to get bashed. And somebody talked about trying to get speed bumps to slow down, you know, because this isn't part of that project, but just
the whole idea of not using speed bumps, and all that will explain a little bit to me about why you don't do that, but you know, something needs to stop these speeders.
And we always try to look at speeding, and we get requests for speed bumps a lot. The reasons we don't use speed bumps is, one, they do slow down our emergency services. I mean, we try to make sure we can get there, and speed bumps slow them down. The other thing with speed bumps is where we put them. If you've ever heard a car, we get complaints with bumpy roads, with the sound. It's tenfold with a speed bump. So if it's in front of somebody's house and somebody goes over a speed bump, there's a lot of noise that goes with it. And so that's one of the main reasons that we don't put them in residential areas. That's the last of our questions for tonight. Once again, thank you so much for coming out here. We do appreciate your input. We're going to consolidate this information. If you have surveys, if you're in the area where you receive the surveys, you can also turn those in tonight to one of the staff members. Or if you have any other comments and you didn't want to speak, you can give us those cards on your way out.
Real quick, Tim, just before, I know everybody's getting ready to leave. I wanted to just thank you again for being here tonight. We do understand there's a lot of input. We are hearing it. I think what I've heard is we want to leave the streets closed off, and that was in this plan. The only other thing I always want to mention is that we are part of an interurban area. We are part of the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, and we have, as a council, have tried to make sure that our city stays relevant, not only today, but in the next 20 and 30 years, in the next 2 and 3 generations that come behind us. If we were to spend money, when we spend money today to build a road or a street, it's a 50-year spend. It's not a 5-year spend, and you can't turn around and redo it. So we're hoping and trying and wishing that our future generations, the people that are going to buy the houses that we own today, have the amenities and things that they want. So we weigh what's going on today with what's going on in the future as well. And we do appreciate that, and we will be discussing it more and more as we come. Thank you all for being here tonight.